Welcome to the Ecom Collab Club Podcast, where operators, risk takers, and battle-tested founders drop the lessons that cost them time, money, and their sanity, and share what actually works so you don't have to pay the same price. Hosted by Peter Gardner and Adam Pierce, founders of the Ecom Collab Club and Blend Commerce, the Shopify CRO agency, and proudly sponsored by OmniSend. Email and SMS marketing so good, it's boring.
Well, hello, folks, and welcome to this week's episode of the Ecom Collab Club Podcast. I'm Adam Pierce, one of the co-hosts, and also joined today by the very lovely and very cuddly Rich Evans from Get Better. Rich, thanks for coming back, mate.
You're more than welcome. I am going to have to get my agent to talk about that welcome video, though.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can have some discussions afterwards. Maybe we'll send you a couple of pork pies, and you'll be happy.
I picked up pies yesterday from a client, so we'll negotiate. Maybe a sausage roll.
Yeah, okay, we can figure that in. Cool. Well, guys, look, let's tell you what we have got in store for today. So first of all we can do is hear from our guest, who I'm going to reveal in a moment. Then Rich and I are going to have a bit of a post-match debrief and sort of unpick what we learned from today. So that sounds good. We'll get going. And what I wanted to do first of all to kind of set the scene today is that if you think about e-commerce and what we're all doing here is ultimately we're generally trying to do one or two things. And that's either getting folks to come to the site and buy, or actually getting folks to come back once they've already purchased from us. And what we really want to do today is go and tackle the latter of those two things and really look more at the realities of what it's like to not only both build and keep that customer loyalty going, which is obviously something that all of us, regardless of what business we use, need to do. And to do that, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome the co-founder of HANXS, Sarah Welsh, to the show. So Sarah, thanks very much for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Not a problem. So I think just to kick us off then, I think, Rich, you're going to get started, aren't you?
Yeah. So before we get into loyalty, you took the step from doctor to Ecom co-founder. How did that happen? And what have you sort of learned along the way?
Yeah, gosh, I mean, learned a lot, as you can imagine. So yeah, I was working in medicine and kind of training in obs and gynae, so women's health, babies, vaginas, essentially, and kind of interest in sexual health. So I was working in sexual health clinics at the time that we thought of the idea. We being one of good friend from school, Sarah, who was working in investment banking, been friends for ages, went to uni together. She obviously went into banking, I went to medicine. And we kind of got together and started talking about condoms, as you do. She had bumped into her boss buying condoms, totally mortified by the experience. And I was working in sexual health clinics, seeing the kind of rise of difficult to treat STIs, a lot of women coming off hormonal contraception, wanting different options. And then obviously just this huge stigma and like so many taboos around sexual health, and just like using condoms, talking about sexual health and wellness, and just like knowing your body. So like a lot of women didn't really know what the ingredients were in the products they were using, for example. And I would see women in gynae clinics with recurrent infections or irritations because of products they were using. So anyway, we were like, Farah and I thought, actually, why are there no products out there that are speaking to a kind of female audience, but also just a little bit more fun, inclusive, not garishly packaged, not kind of using these nasty ingredients that aren't like particularly good for our bodies. So it very much started with condoms, and that was back in 2018. And then since then, we've kind of expanded from condoms, lubricants to supplements, and really kind of tackling lots of taboos and stigmas in women's health and like whether it be pleasure or sexual health or fertility or menopause. So yeah, it's exciting ride, and obviously learned a lot along the way. It's very different going from delivering babies and working in clinics and theatres to figuring out what to do as a co-founder and how to grow a business, and learning a lot. So that's been good fun.
And outside the obvious kind of industry product issue knowledge, do you think there's anything else about your medical career that has made a difference to how you've approached an e-commerce business, positive or negative? Like, is there anything you had to unlearn or that you thought that you brought to it that we're all maybe lacking?
Well, no, I think, yeah, definitely. There's things that are helpful generally, I guess, like having that kind of analytical mind and approaching like product development very like scientifically and with that clinical experience was really helpful to understand like what I was seeing in, in patients and what kind of was needed from products. So that's been really helpful. But obviously lots of things are just kind of started from the bottom up, email marketing and, figuring out like performance marketing and all this kind of stuff. So that was kind of, I guess, a lot of personal investment. But yeah, I think the background of like having that analytical mind has been super helpful.
Oh, okay. Adam?
Yeah, I mean, one thing I do want to ask you about on this front, Sarah, is look, I am in business with one of my friends and also my brother-in-law. In terms of working with your best friend, have there been kind of like positives and negatives of that? And kind of how have you navigated that over the time you've run the company?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a roller coaster marriage, right? It's, we've lived together during that time. We've, lots of things happen personally and professionally. So I think the key thing is the trust and just kind of trusting each other implicitly and being honest with each other. Like we obviously don't agree all the time on everything. But the fact is we kind of have our different, our different backgrounds, lend ourselves, she's very commercial and great with spreadsheets and sales. I'm very much more on the kind of marketing product, operational side. So we have our separate kind of niches, but I think just trusting each other, talking about things, being super open and honest, that really helped. But yeah, it's like definitely not easy. And we got kind of warned all the time. It's like, don't go into business with your best friend. It's a really bad idea. But I think like we're complementary, but like similar and different at the same time. So it kind of works. But yeah, I think a lot of other friends I wouldn't have been able to do it with. Yeah,
no, certainly. I think, it's one of those things. And it is, I think over time you learn what each other's kind of skill sets are and how you do things. And I think obviously that's one of the things that's important because like, each other very well, but then you kind of, I think when you work with someone, you learn a whole other side to someone, kind of how they work in a business capacity versus kind of a social capacity, don't you, as well?
Definitely.
I want to move on then and get sort of stuck into, I guess, sort of the customer loyalty side really, because I think when we say the word customer loyalty, it's quite a big area. But what I'm interested in is when you kind of think about loyalty and when you kind of look at, okay, what are we looking for here? Mm-hmm. Would you say there's a particular number that you track or aspire to for kind of classifying customers loyal? So, is it X amount of orders over X period of time? Like, is there a number there that you look for, or how do you kind of define it when you say, okay, look, this customer is loyal?
Yeah. And I think there's kind of no hard and fast rule because it depends on a couple of things. But for us, for example, like condoms are our biggest seller and we have people who subscribe, people buy one-offs and they buy ad hoc. And for those products, we kind of like at least three to six times a year is like positive for us, loyal for us. But some customers, maybe you'll be buying, like we have a toy or we have supplements and the kind of parameters kind of change a little bit depending on what they're purchasing. So I think as a general rule of thumb, though, so like frequency would be around at least 3 times a year. And then obviously, I guess above that, just like that emotional connection too. So whether it's giving us good reviews, like sending us emails on, customer service emails or DMs or engaging on social and all of those things, like we have such a positive like response rate in that sense and like a really engaged community in that sense. So that to us is a loyal customer who like comes to our events, talks about us, raves about us, maybe isn't buying our products all the time, but is engaged in other ways.
Yeah, because I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Is, that sometimes we get a bit sort of het up about the fact, look, what are the numbers that people are buying? But like you said there with you guys as well, because you've built that community around it, that is also a very important factor from you for, again, driving more sales, isn't it? And I think the other thing is that I was interested in is when you think about those customers coming back, do you feel like it is more of something where customers are loyal out of habit and convenience? Or is it more about the emotional connection with your brand and the way that you do things?
Yeah, I think a bit of both, really. We've got so many customers that have been with us since really early on in the beginning. And they just really care about like our mission, why we exist, everything else that we do that's not just product. But ultimately a lot of people just want that discrete delivery. They know what they want. They know like the product that they want to come every month. And that's just like, okay, cool. We've signed up. Great. It keeps going. It's easy. There's nothing's going wrong with it. I'm quite happy. So I'd definitely say a bit of both of that one.
Do you think, does that make it more difficult in a way to kind of think about your sort of marketing retention then? Because I guess what you got to do is you've got to try and work out in some respects with different segments of customers, which things are more important. And I suppose on the flip side, if you go too heavy on the sort of, I guess sort of the habit side with the customers, more on the emotional. So is that quite difficult to sort of manage in terms of your plans for marketing?
It is, because exactly like you say, you don't want to bombard someone that's just like, I just want the product. It's like, habit. I'm happy with it coming monthly. I don't need all these frills and extra bits that you do. So it is, we do obviously segment a lot. And like without being kind of gender specific, it tends to be the women that are way more interested in the kind of brand, and the guys are quite happy just kind of getting the product, and that's their key focus. So they're like, I guess, more on the habit than the convenience side. But it does make it tricky, because we can't just give like a blanket for everyone. But at the same time, that's what makes it fun, right? It makes it
no, certainly. And I think, we've had quite a few guests on the show where we've talked about this kind of thing about, look, when you've got a brand, there are sort of guiding principles about the business. I guess, look, your overall perception of, your area, which you guys have got, but then you've also, I guess, got the kind of the core value proposition of, okay, what are people buying this for? And I suppose, like you say, it's that kind of juggling of the two, isn't it? And making sure that you've got different levels of that for different types of customers. I suppose the thing that I'm thinking about, from a forecasting point of view with that is that in terms of being able to then forecast off the back of that, do you extrapolate based on segments of loyal customers versus first-time customers? Do you sort of break down that granular level, or is that quite difficult to do?
Yeah, we do that, and we use an app called Lifetimely. I'm sure you've heard of it, which is great for kind of the data on that side. But we basically, the new customers have a different, even from like our forecasting perspective, different AOV, different LTV, like everything, versus a returning customer. So we kind of target them differently, and so that they are kind of split up quite obviously.
Yeah, cool. Okay, great stuff. Rich, I think over to you.
So you mentioned about targets and how you approach customer loyalty, and Lifetimely is a great tool. So from a practical level though, what 3 things have you done as a brand to drive it? Because you don't actually have a loyalty program as such. There's no sort of app and points accumulation and stuff, which I'm behind. I don't think it is the be all and end all. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on how you actually practically approach loyalty. Yeah, and like, good point. We've like thought about it in the past, tried different things. It's just not been the right thing for us for one reason or another. But we do, we kind of treat our subscribers and our loyal customers as like VIPs. So they get kind of different extra treats and early access and things like that. So I think for like tips, like just being like customer centric is obviously key, and really like knowing that customer and, being thoughtful about like what you're sending them, what products that they want. For us as a sexual health, like focused company, it's really difficult sometimes because you don't want to overstep the mark. Can be quite sensitive, intimate, personal thing. But like kind of being, making sure that you've kind of got their needs and interests at the heart of kind of what you're sending them and tailoring to them. It's really important. And then like personalized content, customer support, products mentioned. And for us, like having that like educational approach too is really like important. So we always kind of back up our products with, scientific, research, and we do our own research. We have like gynae-backed, medically backed content, all that kind of good stuff. Kind of bit rather than sort of rather than sort of tiers and stuff and point accumulation, then you're using like, I guess, just good segmentation to target the people that you recognize as being your VIPs, and they're getting early access and things. On the less positive side, then, is there anything you've ever done with this that's pissed customers off? Like, have you ever sort of done anything where you've maybe been too aggressive or sort of congratulated them on something, or anything that you can kind of remember that's sort of come back to you and you'd not repeat again?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been, like, because some of the products we've launched are maybe a bit taboo. So it's like, finally, like, talk about condoms and lube, but you've got a sex toy, that's too much for us. And then when we talk about that, or not push, but, explain the product or kind of give discounts, and it's like, hold on a minute, I don't want this. We've had, offended people that way, but then maybe not quite the right customers if they're offended by our products. But and we've also, one of our most recent product launches, so we have a pharmacy offering online too, and we launched GLP-1 medications kind of with the lens of gynae health, so people who are struggling to get pregnant or have PCOS or other women's health issues. And again, that is like a really taboo topic. So some people have been offended by that, which we kind of knew would be the case. So I suppose learnings from that are very much like warming people up, being very kind of careful on the comms around certain things, whether it's promotions for products that we're pushing, or new product launches, to who actually might be interested in it and who might be offended by it. And we do like opt-outs. Obviously, if you don't want to hear about weight management program, that's totally fine. Like, that's not for you. Just get care, and we won't ever send you anything about it. So I think that comes as part of being in a taboo space, really.
So
can I just, as well,
go after you, Rich.
No, go on.
I was just going to ask, like, in terms of then the different products, and obviously, because like you said, you've got the prescriptions, you've got the medication side, you've got the toy side, you've got the, like they say, the lube side, condoms. From looking at all those different products, which would you say are the ones that tend to lead a customer to other products more so than others? So, like, from a customer journey point of view, when someone comes in for condoms, are they then going to go down the lube route or the sex toy route? Or like, is there one product that you said that generally leads to them becoming a customer of more other products than others?
Yeah, really good question. We've used lifetime use for this a lot, and most of our first-time customers are condom purchasers, and I think that's because that's what we're known for. Like, we have our products in, Tesco, Boots, Sainsbury's, things like that. So in terms of like, people know us for our condoms, and that's what we've been doing the longest. So that tends to be our first customer. But and then people maybe don't use condoms the whole time. They might want to go on birth control, and we give that as a prescription medication. Or they might like not be on the trying for a baby, and we have fertility supplements. Or they might just be having a break, and then like the lube's always good, or the toy. So some things like more universal, like the lube, like everyone can use that. But some of them are like, well, if I'm not, having sex, I don't need my condoms really. So some things are a bit more like you either need them or you don't. But yeah, definitely more.
There's, I guess, like a level of empathy and responsibility as well, because I mean, I remember finding out that we were pregnant with my first son before my wife told me, because a Facebook ad started appearing of things
no
she
way.
was starting to look at, because using the same Wi-Fi. And I guess like we have a client that sells jewelry, and particularly like engagement rings. And so there's a real issue with like opt-in, because people are so petrified of getting a notification that is going to blow the surprise and things. I guess there's an element really for you of responsibility and empathy to not fire an email out, because, normal post-purchase was, we hope you're enjoying insert product and stuff here. But how do you sort of tackle and sort of own that responsibility, I guess, to not cause anyone an awkward situation?
Yeah. And it can be tricky, but I think there's always that balance of just, being as kind of inclusive as possible and thinking about different outcomes, whilst also, we are playful with the brand and kind of have fun with it as well. So yeah, there's certain topics that we wouldn't like, kind of be, what's the word, playful with, that it could be sensitive. We've really got to be careful of that, and our like marketing team are amazing and like really good on the comms, and I think always very thoughtful. It's just trying to think of different people's scenarios, I guess.
Yeah. And have you ever seen anything sort of loyalty focused or industry focused that has just been by other brands that has really made you sort of squirm or shudder when it comes to this topic?
Yeah, I mean, that was a good example, Rich, around the engagement rings, or like finding something out, like the overstepping privacy mark, like that's too much. This was a long time ago, but like the Victoria's Secret classic, like perfect body campaign, and then kind of just having one type of body image on there saying that that's the perfect body. That I think it is like obviously very exclusive and pisses people off, and they'll have a lot of customers that obviously didn't like that. So that kind of thing, it's not great. And I'm trying to think of what else. I think certain loyalty programs are just like so complicated that there's so many T's and C's and different points and tiers and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, I can't be bothered. Don't get it. Can't bother to like just give up on it. Can't think of a specific one, but there's definitely, maybe like airlines and stuff sometimes do like loads of different loyalty things that just seem actually not that helpful or not that good, or like being bombarded by loyalty stuff when it's not actually any better than the standard offer, which we've been guilty of before, like doing deeper offers, like blanket offers when people on subscription don't feel special anymore. So that's, I guess not great.
With kind of like that, obviously the loyalty program side of things there as well. I think the other thing is, I guess a lot of the time what we find is customers kind of don't see it as a very tangible thing, especially when brands don't really kind of advertise the fact of sort of what points they have. And I think, Rich, you probably see this with some clients you've worked with as well, is that, look, you can accumulate all these points, but you're getting the occasional email nudge to say, look, you've got these points, and start using them. And I suppose that's a difficult thing, is it's like he doesn't kind of feel like you're getting a real benefit. Whereas I guess what you guys are saying is, look, you're doing things all the time that are trying to make everyone feel included with your comms, with the offers that you've got, rather than kind of, I guess, sort of facing to that group of people that have signed up.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think it's so hard to just keep a track of all, if you've got involved in lots of different brands, like keep track of all your loyalty systems, and it's just a bit, too much sometimes. But for us, we do like, new products launching, early access to buying those products, or even just like gifting new samples in the subscription boxes, early offers, early events, early offers. So they feel special, and we are treating them differently to the standard new customer.
Cool. I mean, let's talk more about sex now. I think is probably the thing I've been wanting to get into this conversation so far. So one of the things that is talked about a lot at the moment is kind of like personalization, and also kind of like using personal data to sell better. Now, a lot of the time, the kind of things that, people like Rich and I do is that we will have things like on-site quizzes, or we'll ask them information about how they're going to use the product, about their lifestyle, that kind of thing. Have you guys gone that far in terms of asking more people about their sex lives and about their sexual health to then help you sell better? Or again, is that something you feel is like kind of pushing it maybe a little bit too far about asking people about sexual preferences and kind of that sort of thing?
Yeah. And we obviously kind of have toyed with this back and forth over the years. I think it is such a sensitive thing. And some people just can like see right through it and just feel like we're gathering data on them, which is obviously not the case. But we do so we don't have any like standard quiz. Like I think there are other kind of competitors in the space that maybe do like, in order to build your subscription, like go through this questionnaire, and then they'll obviously got a lot of data that way, which is obviously great from their perspective, but it just doesn't feel authentic or feel great for us from a brand customer point of view. But what we do is customer surveys, optional, send them out kind of roughly every quarter, and lots of optional questions in there, and then just kind of asking a little bit more about intimate things about like their sex lives, preferences, but mainly like what they want to see from the brand, what we could do better, all that kind of stuff. So I say we, like, compared to other brands, we don't do as much because of the space that we're in, and the sensitivities of that data. Because again, with the healthcare side of the business, so all the pharmacies, so whether that be birth control, vaginal health treatments, or the weight management medication. There's a lot of information there that we gather. We have to, because it's an online consultation that goes through our pharmacy partner who prescribe and dispense. But that, it feels like a lot for the customer to be sharing this information to a brand. So we're very, conscious of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, the last point I wanted to just ask you about on this as well, Sarah, is you mentioned there about obviously the fact that you're kind of omnichannel in the sense that you're stocked in retailers as well. Is it difficult to get data on customers that are kind of dipping in and out of online versus in-store? And I suppose the other thing with that is, on top of that, is then the way that you then have to think about loyalty. Does that make it more complex now that you're stocked physically as well?
Yes. Data-wise, it's really tricky. And also knowing where the customers come from if they find us in retail and then they come online, or they come online, they stop subscribing. And we ask when they stop, if they're a subscriber, we ask them, what's the reason? Like, often it's because they've got too much product or things have changed. But sometimes it's like, oh, you're in my local boot, so I'll just get you there. So that data bit's really hard. I mean, there is data we can purchase from the retailers, but it's expensive. And as a small brand, we don't do that. So yeah, that's tricky to kind of monitor. And then the second question was around, what was the second?
Yeah, I think it was about kind of tracking it. And then also, do you have any interaction with customers where you can kind of ask them or find out if they are kind of, I guess, flip-flopping between in-store versus online purchase? I guess that's tricky as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so we do that through, and we will ask them sometimes when they stop subscribing, we get that information from them if they want to give it to us. And we do kind of customer surveys, but ultimately there's no other kind of data we can really get from the retailers or, to know where they've come from, which makes marketing, digital marketing, it's it's great because being on shelf is also a marketing tool for us, right? And being, especially as like a newer brand in like a healthcare space with a product that we need to be trusted, and, being next to the big dogs is really helpful in heritage places like Boots. But yeah, it can be tricky to monitor marketing efforts as well.
I know I keep saying I've got one. I said, well, I've just thought of something else. Actually, you mentioned there about kind of being next to the big dogs there. And when people, let's say condoms, for example, probably a lot of people, if you think about condom brands in the UK, you probably think about Durex, perhaps, as kind of, I guess, the archetypal brand. There's been a lot of, I guess, D2C brands like Surreal, for example, in the cereal space, who have sort of made a bit of a joke about sort of the position of those other competitors. Is that a route that you've ever thought about taking, or would it be something that you would shy away from?
We've been playful with competitors before, and we've, been hit by legal letters. So it's kind of put us off. Like comparative adverts, the usual stuff. But yeah, I mean, as you say, Durex, they own, 80% of the market share here. So there's one big player really. So yeah, we don't want to piss them off too much, but we definitely ultimately like that we have differences in our product, and that's why we exist. And, so we definitely are a little bit playful, but we don't want to overstep the mark.
Be careful. Cool. I mean, you mentioned subscriptions there, and that's actually what I want to get onto now. So in terms of prescription side of things, subscription side, what proportion roughly of sales going to come from subscription versus sort of those single purchases?
So yeah, it's about 20% of subscription only, which probably is lower because of the nature of condoms and usage, and people maybe don't know necessarily how often they can need them. Things change. Contraceptive needs change. But we still have about 20% of customers on subscription.
And with the subscriptions as well, when it kind of comes to looking at that, a lot of the guests that we've had on the show recently and talking about subscriptions, they've kind of said, look, the whole sort of subscribe and save model, it doesn't really cut the mustard by itself anymore. It's been around for a while. People are used to the fact that when they subscribe, they get sort of money off. How else do you, I guess, number one, able to show more value than just that saving that you get when you subscribe? And then with that, then how do you also use that to stop them churning? Because look, churn is always going to be a factor, but how do you maybe try to limit that with kind of what you say, what you do, what you present to people.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to a lot of the kind of other things I was mentioning around our VIPs, and they're seen as VIPs. So they get early access to things. We, give them new products early. We'll, give access to events that we do our own events, or we'll do events with partners, early offers, things like that. And then just having that flexibility, I guess. And again, this is like standard now, but no commitment, no, you don't have to be in for a certain number of months. You can cancel anytime, you can change anytime. Often we ask people to pause as well rather than cancel. So they might just pause for 6 months, and that's fine, but we're not like technically losing them. So it just is a better way to retain them. If they say, actually, look, I've got too much product, I want to cancel. So, well, you can pause for a bit. Would you be happy with that? And they are often. Yeah.
And on you mentioned events there. Look, Rich and I obviously are co-hosts of an event in the e-commerce space. I'll be interested to kind of find out a bit more about your event side. So, what sort of events have you done, and how, as a customer or potential customer, do you get invited to those?
Yeah. So, we've done like sex ed for adults, so, kind of sex ed in schools is so bad. We always all recognize that. And we're saying, actually, a lot of people get to adulthood and still haven't really had any good sex education. So we do a more fun adult version of sex ed, and we partner with other brands and, sex therapists or sex writers that can help teach. So we've done events like that. We've done events with postpartum, about postpartum pleasure, and worked with a partner on that who's written a book around it. So that kind of things. We've done a session on egg freezing and what does that mean, and fertility options. So kind of not just in the sexual health space as well, and very much around kind of women's health and that broader fertility space as well. And we do in person, but we also started to do a few more online as well, because we tend to do the in-person in London. Obviously, appreciate not everyone is here or can't access coming here. But yeah, so we put it out to our mailing list essentially, and our loyal customers first dibs, and then anyone else who wants to come.
And with those events, I guess, look, are they? It sounds like, obviously, again, you would imagine those are very much focused on, I guess, the female demographic. Have you considered, or have you done any events kind of targeted at men as well? Because I guess, look, men are buying the products as well, but maybe on a lesser so. But is that something that you've kind of explored as well? Yeah,
and we're conscious not to be, not to leave that customer base out, because we do have a good chunk of customers that are men. It's tricky though, because a lot of our tone of voice and our brand messaging is around kind of female health, and that's often why a lot of men like our product as well, because they feel that they're buying something that they know female partner might like. So yes, we've had men at our events as well, but I'd definitely say the vast majority, it is very female orientated. So yeah, we haven't done a male specific event, I have to say, but we're conscious not to, to be very inclusive and not say it's just, postpartum pleasure, I guess, is very female focused, but sex ed for adults, everyone should be coming to that.
Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. So on the subject of subscriptions here, I know you mentioned there as well about, look, when someone attempts to cancel, you're trying to push people towards that pause as well. When they do cancel, do you kind of have a sort of a re-engagement program, or sort of how long do you leave it before you try and touch base with them, and what sort of things do you do to try and bring them back into the fold?
Yeah, we're actually reviewing this again at the moment, because the biggest reason that people cancel is because they have too many product. We're conscious not to try and re-engage them too soon, but we do re-engage them kind of at, I think it's 3 to 6 month mark. And yeah, again, it's trying not to be too annoying about it, but I think we always err on the side of being too annoying, when actually customers, if they don't want to read the email or they don't want to re-engage, then they won't, and that's fine. So yeah, we do. Yeah.
Because it's an interesting one with cancellation. We actually had a beauty client not so long back, and they were very adamant that if you wanted to cancel on the cancellation options on the subscription, the only way to cancel was actually by calling up. What's your thoughts on doing it that way?
I mean, it would reduce the cancellation rate, I'm sure, but it really pisses customers off. Like, I think that's really annoying. I've had similar things before. There's a balance, I think. And for us, it doesn't feel right that that's the, there are barriers to, like, Amazon Prime, there's like a million different buttons to press or whatever, but you get there in the end. But I think it just puts people off subscribing again ever, because you're like, oh, I'm going to never be able to cancel. So for us, like, having that flexibility is really putting the customer first and saying, actually, we get it. You don't want to subscribe the whole time, for whatever reason, like, that's up to you, but come back when you're ready. So yeah.
I concur. And you mentioned Amazon. You guys sell on Amazon as well?
We do, yeah.
And how does that kind of compare in terms of from a customer point of view, from a loyalty perspective versus direct to consumer?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, we have like a slightly different demographic on Amazon, more men, whereas obviously more women on our platform. And the different SKUs sell better as well. The large size sells better on Amazon than on our site. So I think in terms of loyalty, they can do Amazon Prime and subscribe, but for us, the loyalty is really through the brand, which is obviously why we want them to come to us over Amazon. But appreciate that some people just love shopping on Amazon, and that's the only place they get their products. So
cool. No, good to know. All right, thank you very much. Rich, over to you.
We've sort of danced around a few things about community, and so events, and you mentioned about surveys and things. There is a lot. Community has undoubtedly been the buzzword of the last 6 to 12 months, and what it actually means and what people are sort of spouting about it, I think, are generally two different things. How do you use community and brand advocacy and user-generated content and things on a practical level at HANXS?
Yeah, and I think for us, it has genuinely been like a key part of our brand from the beginning. Like, that's how we built our products. That's how we've built who we are. And, we've just always been in response to customers. And we do focus groups for our new products were basically customer led. So I think for us, we lean on our customers a lot for what they want to see from the brand and how we could do things better. Like you say, through the surveys and events and things like that. And focus groups being a key one as well. User-generated content, we do use those on obviously social media and through our performance marketing channels as well. People can then relate to the customer and then come back. And I think the more authentic it is, the better it does. So yeah, I would say for us, community is definitely a big deal.
And on the user-generated content, do you reward your customers for user-generated content and brand advocacy? Because I know some brands do, and how do you feel about that?
We have in the past, yeah, depending on different things. But yeah, we have with product essentially. We haven't had a formal program. I know some brands do. They'll pay customers, or they'll have a certain program for user-generated content and whatever that might be. But yeah, we haven't had anything formal like that, but we definitely, and there's certain customers that maybe have been engaged for a long time and do things with us, and we'll maybe give them, free product or bring them to our events, that kind of thing. And yeah.
And Sarah, with obviously that kind of community piece as well, I was wanting to extend that out to kind of thinking about other brands. Have you done any kind of brand collaborations in the past, and what's your kind of take on when you do get brands coming together to kind of guest present, as complementary products?
Yes, we have. We do quite a lot of brand partnerships. So we sell in the States as well, and we've just done a brand partnership with Meridian, which is like a razor company out there, quite a cool one. They do there was a couple of other brands in there, so we did a competition with them, and that's been great. We've done kind of lots of campaigns around opening up education. I'm trying to think of other partners that we've recently worked with, because sometimes it's not always about being obviously with a sexual wellness brand either. It's like, you know, we worked with a company called Books That Matter, which is like a book club. And we put our condoms in their book club. Like that was quite fun one, but quite different. And it worked out quite well. And the audience were very actually engaged with our brand, interestingly. So, you know, doing stuff that's like not obvious as well has been quite fun.
Excellent.
And
Cool.
if you, in the sort of community style again, do you have any like Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups that you sort of promote between customers and things where you can sort of moderate, but sort of see and take away some of that good like qualitative data that we've talked about on another podcast before, where you can see how people are talking about it and have you taken anything from that?
Yeah, and this is something we want to do more of, to be honest, is again that kind of balance. So when a few years ago we launched a chat room called HANXS Life, and it was basically what we said like Mumsnet but without your mum, or like Reddit but for sexual health. And it was really interesting. People came on and spoke about everything and anything, like relationships, thrush, like whatever. And it was really interesting to see because so many people came on and read the threads, but they didn't actually engage otherwise. We didn't have a huge uptake. It was quite slow. And I think it was because as a sexual wellness brand, like, I think people were like, I don't want to come in and talk about sex for everyone to see. And like the most read thread there was like, my girlfriend won't go down on me. And like there was loads of comments, but everyone went and just like read about it, but didn't really engage apart from that. So I think it's tricky for us. So we don't have that chat room anymore, but I think a Facebook group might be the better way forward for like different community groups. But at the moment we don't really do that. It's more intimate, like events or focus groups.
And would you consider, so I think WhatsApp is coming down the line, and businesses, I'm already sort of taking part in like customer service conversations with businesses on WhatsApp and things, and it's definitely going to be more and more utilized in business, and it's going to be less broadcast, more conversational. Obviously for a small brand, that's difficult because how do you keep up with too many conversations, which is when then AI developments and AI agents and stuff are coming in. Because if I think about the sort of way in which a lot of your products go in a sort of face-to-face life, I mean, I suffer with type 2 diabetes, which has in the past, where it's been really, really bad, led to some intimate issues as a result of it. And so I've got to be that guy that turns up to the pharmacy and the supermarket and things. And I absolutely don't want to be answering all of the questions. I'm really self-aware and I just want to get what I've researched and know that I need quite quickly. But then I've had a follow-up in the past after the event, in a more sort of in a phone call environment where I've had a two-way conversation, which has maybe given me a little bit more insight as to why those questions were being asked and maybe recommended some other things to me. So would you consider that sort of letting AI agents loose on people to have maybe two-way conversations to sort of almost in a quizzing matter after the event to maybe build on that zero-party data and help a recommended plan of action from there?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a space for it for sure. And like you were saying around that education piece, because understanding like why being asked the questions or why, why something might be better than another product to be using or follow-up care or whatever it might be. I think there's definitely a space for that. And it's just, I guess being careful around what the AI tool is being used for, and then having like a human backup.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, guys, we'll be back shortly after this quick ad. And for our final questions for Sarah.
Do you sell stuff online? Then you need OmniSend. Yes, that OmniSend. The powerful yet refreshingly intuitive email and SMS tool that helps you make $73 on average for every dollar spent. Like watching steady lines go up and up and up? Just automate your email and SMS campaigns with OmniSend. Set it up once, then sit back and watch the sales roll in while you snooze. You're still awake? Then go to omnisend.com/ECC. Give OmniSend a try and start getting sales so steady they'll definitely put you to sleep. Don't forget to use code ECC30 for a 30% discount.
All right. So, Rich, I think it's back over to you, sir.
Where can people find more about HANXS? So website, and any other sort of, where would you send them to the website if this was their sort of first journey into wanting to understand more about HANXS?
Yeah, definitely. Website for sure. And like a bit more on about us, but also our blog, Naked Truths, has got loads of content on there. And yeah, obviously we've got lots of different products, as mentioned, from sexual wellness to supplements to pharmacy products. So yeah, hopefully something for most people.
Excellent. And Sarah, just before we go to the questions from our guests or our viewers today, thinking about, some of the brands that are listening in either live or on the recording here, when you think about obviously focusing too much on customer acquisition and maybe more so now on trying to move that to developing this kind of loyal band of customers that you guys have got, what would you say would be the first 2 or 3 steps you would advise them to do if loyalty is not something they previously focused on?
Yeah, I think key thing, sounds really boring, but like just understanding your customer. So whether that is like customer research, questionnaires, focus groups, calling customers, like really understanding like who that customer is, what they want, what they don't want, what works, what doesn't, like deep diving into that data, any data that you've got, like that is so valuable. And then, yeah, I guess from our point of view, like the customer, like looking at the customer value. So like not just being transactional about whatever you're doing with the customer, but like what else can you give them? Like thinking about other add value things that would work. And then, yeah, creating something that's flexible as well around that customer. So yeah, it kind of all stems from the deep understanding of the customer, really.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, what we can do now, Sarah, is we've got some questions from the audience I'm going to put on the screen. I'll read them out. And it'd be great if we can have a little deep dive into those. So the first question we've got is from previous guest on Ecom Collab Club podcast and friend of the show. So Steve Woodcock. So Steve says, great chat, really interesting. You mentioned the normal cross-channel purchase behavior like retail versus ecom, but how do you manage getting the true frequency information on a product? Thinking of condoms specifically, where usage varies, do you have a dry spell contingency? So yeah, go and have more sex. I mean, is that what you say, or is it, how do you deal with that?
You joke, but we kind of do try and sometimes like, how are we going to make people have more sex? Like, what are we going to do? So yeah, I mean, it's so true. And like, that's why like from like a behavioral perspective, like our product is so different to others. But yeah, I think the true frequency, that's why we offer pausing the subscription as well, right? Because things change, we know that. And actually, yeah, even like most people don't, even if they're in a long-term relationship or, having regular sex, then things do change still, or people might be away or like whatever, you don't necessarily exactly know. So, yeah, we're just flexible, I think is the main thing. And how do you manage getting true frequency information? I think it's a balance and understanding the data and kind of having caveats to that, being like, okay, this is the average time people spend on subscription, but that doesn't necessarily translate to, how often they're using the product necessarily, because they could be getting it elsewhere, or they could, have personal reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. Question from Joseph. So Joseph says, regards to subscriptions, doesn't have a direct impact on chargebacks?
At all. With regards to subscriptions, doesn't have a direct impact on chargebacks. What does he mean by that?
I think Joseph, you want to clarify, but I think what he's saying sometimes is that when you have a subscription product, sometimes when people don't necessarily cancel, then they basically try and get a refund from you before that product has then been sent out, for example. So does it cause any issues with kind of customers saying, well, look, actually, although I had a subscription, I don't actually want it anymore. Does that pose any problems to you guys?
Do you know what? We don't have too much, we don't have too many people doing that, to be honest. We do have, if the product isn't open, they can resend it back for a refund. So we do have that option with most of our products, not all of them. So yeah, we normally don't have that concern actually by the time they've cancelled, and even if one's on the way, they're happy to have that product. So yeah, we haven't had too much issue with that.
Good stuff. So the next question we've got is customer service part of loyalty, and how important is this for HANXS?
Yeah, 100%, like so important. And And, we get so many messages as well or like customer service messages around like personal things, people opening up to us or, telling us their personal stories or, whatever it might be. So it really is like invaluable to have like a human on the other side that's really personable to the customer. And we get so many good reviews actually on the customer service as well, whether that is simply around like the boring logistics or postal issues, or about, talking about the product or reassuring people in different ways, or signposting them to different information. So I think for us, like that's like huge. Yeah.
No, that's great. Rich, I think you've got the next question, which I'll just flash up on the screen.
On reviews, have you ever had to recover from a bad review? And what's your process when that happens?
Yeah, we have, sadly, as most brands have. And the difficulty we have as well, like we're talking about condoms, they're a medical device. They go through all the regulations and all the testing that every other big brand has to, but they don't work 100% of the time, right? So sometimes for whatever reason, they might break. So we get bad reviews if that happens, which is tricky because you don't want to be too defensive and be like, it's not our problem, it's not our fault. Sorry, but so I think just being really like empathetic to the customer about what the issue is and like understanding them. And yeah, we're always quite open. So like on Trustpilot, we'll put we'll reply to reviews, all of the reviews, including the bad ones, and try and get to the bottom of it or help. Or, if there was something genuinely that we could have done better, then we will put our hands up and we will, send a replacement or whatever it might be. So I think that's sadly we do. And we've got a libido lift supplement, which is a female libido supplement. And we get both ends of the spectrum on that. We get some amazing reviews and we get some reviews being like, didn't work. So, that's just, I guess, one of those things.
Yeah.
A human body thing though, and they're all very different, isn't it? I think I'm glad you replied to all reviews, because that was going to be my first point, because so many brands will only focus on the negatives. And I think the negative reviews, I was with a client yesterday and trying to sort of advocate that they're an opportunity, because we all use reviews in the same way. We look at the stars, but then we do go and see if we can find the first bad review, so we can see what the worst case is and how you as a brand deal with it. So that's really good to see.
Excellent. Well, look, Sarah, thank you so much, obviously, for coming on today. And obviously, I think, look, educating us all more about, obviously, the sexual wellness category, and also as well, obviously, about what you guys do specifically with, obviously, HANXS and developing that loyalty with, obviously, the events that you do, with the touch points that you have. So thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you so much for having me. It was great to chat to you guys.
Thanks so much. Cheers, Sarah. Take care. Bye now.
Bye.
Hello, Rich.
Hello.
Right.
We navigated women's sexual health quite well there.
I mean, if we'd love to hear your thoughts if you're listening here about whether we handled that well or whether we came across as two creepy middle-aged men. I don't know, but hopefully it wasn't too late.
Like the chest throw. I've not seen you with that look before.
It was grinning a little bit, wasn't it? Unfortunately, but hey, there we go. But Rich, look, let's go back and I guess sort of unpick some of this. Now, I want to start off with the first point there, and when we obviously asked Sarah about that number for customer loyalty, and obviously define that, she said it was sort of quite difficult to kind of come up with a number to know when a customer is loyal. And I know she mentioned about LTV. When you look at loyalty with customers and how you segment them, is that kind of a hard and fast rule that you use in your brands from an email marketing point of view?
Not really. I think it's so relative to every brand, but it's also so relative to every user. So different users have different consumption patterns, don't they? And so loyalty is relative, which is a conversation again fresh from yesterday, because if I am in my later years living alone and I like to order pies, it might be like I might be eating more pies than your average user because I'm ordering 8 every 2 months, because I've only got a small freezer and things like that. Whereas if I'm a family of 5 then I'm going to be repeat ordering way more often. So I think it's about noticing patterns and using segments to sort of notice those people that have had a regularity, like RFM and things, but then they've dropped off. That's a loyalty risk. Whereas it's not just your biggest LTV and your biggest value is a different kind of argument, I think. You might have been catering for an event, or you might have been doing something very specific. So it is a difficult thing to do. I think when we had Cameron on from Grenade a couple of weeks ago, he made a really good point, is that we need to remove the word scheme and program from loyalty, because that sort of suggests that we have an agenda, and it's it's a scheme, and you have to fall within that scheme. And I think it's more about rewarding loyalty, which it sounds very much like Sarah and HANXS are doing, in terms of recognizing patterns and rewarding that without it being, oh, you've got to reach these points and then we'll start rewarding you. We're rewarding you because you seem like you like us and you've been back, and we like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that's the other point, is that obviously, like you mentioned to Sarah there, that they didn't kind of have a formal loyalty program. She mentioned they kind of tried that in the past. I think, look, from my perspective, we've definitely seen more of a pull away from loyalty programs. And I kind of think that it's probably because, as well, with a lot of marketing that is done by D2C brands now, it's a lot more personable. And I think in terms of being able to build up loyalty, the tack now is more so about trying to build up a connection with your customer base by showing them more of what they will probably expect to do. I mean, we've definitely seen an increase in people using loyalty programs where there is a cashback element opposed to points, because I think, look, my opinion on points-based programs is always still the case. It's that it's not the fact of the technology that's there. It's more the case that the actual rollout of it is never actually handled that well. And I guess you probably see this, with email, is that when clients come to you, they don't have the points reminder emails going out. They don't have the banners atop the top of an email which says you have X amount of points there. From that loyalty program point of view, do you think that loyalty programs are on their way out, or do you think that we're kind of entering a different phase of loyalty?
I think it's a different phase. And I think, if you look at the retail world and look at the way in which some of the biggest loyalty schemes that we all use, so Sainsbury's with Nectar and Tesco with Clubcard and things, it's about live rewards there and then. So rather than they still have the elements to them where you accumulate points, and those points mean prizes and things at the end, or vouchers, but actually the rewards are very live. So I think what the new wave needs to be is on-site loyalty. So when you're on site, it's showing you a product, but it's giving you a discount based on your level of loyalty.
Yeah.
And follow those trends where the big retailers have gone. And I think personalization is, we've talked about this, and this has come up even when we're not talking about personalization. It seems to come up lately. And, I think we're moving into a world where finally people are recognizing that personalization goes beyond hi, first name. And it is more about understanding where someone is at and what the nature of their relationship is with you. There is no point in going to try and push loyalty to someone that's come to your site, drop through your funnel like a stone to order an emergency contraceptive pill, because that isn't something you want to encourage them to be coming back to order again and again and again. There's a different sort of relationship there. But what you can do is offer them, guidance on other things. So yeah, I think to come back to the actual question, loyalty is something where I think it is due a change. And I see I've been looking at a new platform called Elite, which has sort of come into e-commerce from the angle of they've been doing loyalty for like the hospitality trades, bars, restaurants, and takeaways and things for quite some time, where these things, we're noticing these patterns and trends are probably executed better than they are in e-commerce. And I'm really interested to see what they're going to be doing. So we're looking at some options where we could maybe bring that in. And I think, just kind of moving away from you get points and tiers and points mean prizes, and it being, like Sarah mentioned, way too complicated to even comprehend, and moving into being more part of that personalization mission.
Yeah, Awesome. We've got a question here from Joseph, and Joseph said, what's the challenge with keeping loyalty, especially with customer lifetime value going down? I mean, I'll sort of, I think, chime in on this one to start with, Rich. I mean, for me, I think the problem with customer loyalty now is the fact that it's really that kind of paradox of choice that you've got, because so many brands that are out there not only are competing for the same product in terms of attention on customers, but they're also then competing with time. And I think, in terms of when you think about things like, for example, clothing, clothing is not just is not now competing with other clothing brands. They're also then competing with accessories. They're competing with phone accessories, all the things that people then want to spend their disposable income on. I think the thing on the loyalty front, though, is for me, it's really about the communication. And I think a lot of the time when we think about loyalty and think about marketing for loyalty, for me, I think you should remove that word marketing and actually put in the word communication, because I think once that customer is in with you, there is a tendency, I think, a lot of the time, especially with email marketing, especially with on-site pop-ups, things like that it is always about directly pushing people to the next product. And actually what needs to happen is, like those customer surveys, like those emails where it is from the founder in plain text, explain to them what's happening with the company. That side of things, I think, is where actually a lot of brands don't do very well. And it's something that we've been encouraging a lot of people to do with the clients that we work with, about trying to switch that, I guess, sort of view in the head of, look, you're not continually marketing to people already customer. You're just communicating with them more to give them a deeper level of understanding and bond with the company. So that's my take on that one.
Yeah, I think it's almost replacing the word loyalty with relationship. And it's that sort of, what is your relationship status? I think ultimately we're not loyal anymore. We are, we've been through a cost of living crisis, and whatever the media will sort of tell you, stamp duty rises come in today and things. We're very cost driven. It's like sustainability, it's a nice thing to have, but I've heard time and time again from founders that it does still fall quite far down the list with the majority of users when it comes to that price decision. So I think it's unreasonable to expect, my grandparents would always go and buy everything from Marks and Spencer's. My dad has some real loyal tendencies. I think the buyers of today, though, and sort of future generations are not loyal by instinct. And so I think it's more about relationship, and it's being that sort of, again, coming back round to personalization, customer lifetime value going down. I think that is something that loyalty and rewarding loyalty can do. But I think rather than expecting people to be driven by reaching tiers and reaching certain point levels and then redeeming them, you've got to, again, take the approach of you recognizing people's loyalty and sending them personalized, whether it's text-based from the founder, communications and things like that, or whether it's extra perks, can you team up with other brands and sort of reward, surprise and delight is another good thing that I really like in subscriptions, where, you never know, actually, you're going to get something else in your package this month. There's a contact lenses brand, aren't there, that sends mini Haribos, and it gets brought up time and time again. People, I get these contact lenses and I just know I'm going to get a little. Yeah. And it's like, what's the cost of that? 2p, 3p? I think it's just thinking beyond, like we've just been saying, points and prizes and tiers and stuff, and actually being more personalized with it.
And you mentioned subscriptions, and obviously we talked to Sarah about that, and she was saying obviously at the moment HANXS is about 20% subscription base. Now I think, look, subscriptions is a big part of my world in terms of blend, because about 70-80% of our clients have some form of subscription. I think what's interesting though here is on the subscription side is there's definitely been a change in obviously how these have been handled. From a marketing point of view, and from an email marketing, specifically with you guys, do you think that kind of brands that are heavy on subscription and trying to push subscription, it is a more difficult relationship to manage with email marketing than it is with single purchase, or the other way around, or about the same?
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a tendency. So we've got brands and we'll audit them, and where you sort of, the only way to purchase is to sign up to a subscription. And so the onus is then on you to cancel that before the next one comes, which I don't like, because especially if it's my first experience with a brand, I want to trial it. I want to get the product and then decide if I'm going to subscribe and things. And so I think that puts people off. I think as well, brands that rely on subscriptions are almost nervous about sending emails. Oh, let's exclude the subscribers from that, because what we don't want to do is remind them that they've got a subscription with us and then they might cancel it. Let's wait until, let's not email anyone within 14 days of their subscription, just in case it reminds them to canceling things, which is fundamentally a really backwards way of thinking about things. So it does make things difficult, but I do also appreciate just how it is the lifeblood of some brands, and that guaranteed recurring revenue and things is important. So it's definitely a tricky one to navigate. How do you sort of navigate it?
Yeah, I mean, I think particularly I think on the email marketing front and the communication pieces, what we've particularly found is, again, having that switch off from like marketing and trying to ram more product and being scared to contact them. It's a little bit like, I think Pedram, who from Cloris, who was on previously, said, look, as a product business, you actually think it's a service-based business. So for example, if you are a beauty brand and you've got someone on subscription, in terms of then the email marketing that goes out to them, can you then be giving them practical things they need to do before they get the product? Can you be communicating when you probably think they maybe used it 1 or 2 times? Are there things where people have gone wrong with maybe using too much or too little that you can put into an email? So it's those kind of touch points of the experiences they'll be going through with that subscription of being helpful to show that you're there. I think for me, that's kind of how we try and play it with subscription-based customers, opposed to, look, let's just get really nervous about emailing and contact them, but just make sure that what you're giving to them is actually useful information. Making sure their experience of the product is really, really good. That's also going to start them dropping it. Yeah, of course, if they buy too much or they don't like the taste of it, don't like the texture on their skin, there may be some things that you're going to lose out on there. But ultimately, I think that the biggest thing with subscription is there is often this misconception by brands that customers know exactly how to use it, when to use it, what to use it for, the benefits they should see. Those things are not necessarily clear. And you need to kind of keep that piece going after they've actually subscribed.
And I think, we talked community earlier, and everyone wants and needs community and things. Your subscribers are your community. They are the sort of lifeblood of it. So if anything, you should be encouraging more brand advocacy, more engagement, more contact, more everything. If your email does remind someone that they need to cancel, great, because it's much better than them getting it and then having to go around the houses and then realize that the only way to cancel is to call you. And then at that point, kind of thinking, right, well, they might need to cancel, they might need to pause. But either way, if you've made it really, really hard and they forget to do that, it's going to be really hard to bounce them back and win them back again when they're back in a position where they're having more sex or eating more protein bars or doing any of the things that mean that they need your products again.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, cool. So Peter Gardner, who's that guy? He says
you were just about to just say his name then in like passing, as if, right, we've got someone called Peter Gardner.
Yeah,
because of course he's Bob.
Who is this man? Dark pattern e-commerce when you don't even know you're subscribing. Yeah, I mean, look, this is something that we're seeing a lot more of now. I think, look, I've got to be straight here. Look, for some of our brands, we do make sure that we do push subscription as the first purchase for some brands versus single purchase. However, it's very clear that you are subscribing. But I've seen that a lot recently, is that you can feel like you're buying a single time, but actually you are subscribing. For me, it seems like a really silly thing to do.
We've got a brand and they've got such a wonderful product, and it makes such a big difference for people that suffer with this exact issue that it's a supplement to sort of solve. But it doesn't really show full effects until you're 3 months in. And so we have a real sort of issue with, do we force that? And so just do a starter pack, which maybe has a longer sort of supply sort of status. And I think rather than and look, I know you can incentivize these things, and look, it's an absolutely fine model and it does work really well, but I think it just needs to be really, really clear. And so if the post-purchase can do that job to sort of say, right, just to confirm, this is the first sort of package you have subscribed, so what will happen next is this and this. Here's a load of other guides as to how to use and how to get the most out of this product. I think if you look at in GDPR kind of did, acknowledge this because it got out of hand with marketing consent. And you were sort of like, tick this box, but only if you are giving us permission to not send you emails that you do want to receive, but we might not send you emails, but we will send you emails if you don't tick this box. And so tick it. And it was like really baffling, and you just don't really know whether you're coming or going. And so, GDPR came in, and now everybody, and I think email marketing's got better as a result of it. I think with the subscription side of things, I think transparency is always going to be a really good footing to get off with a new customer on.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay, so the last thing that we talked about with Sarah was community, and she talked obviously about the event side of things. From an event marketing point of view, look, you and I are obviously heavily involved in events, but in a very different context. Ultimately, look, the events that we run are for brands and agencies and obviously the tech providers, so slightly different. But from that brand point of view of doing events, I've seen a lot of this in the US, but not a great deal in the UK. Do you think that the UK consumer reacts differently to events than maybe the US consumer does when it comes to brands?
Yes and no. There's obviously cultural differences and things, but there's not massive differences. I think there's more of the US. There's generally a little more going on, and there's a much more, I think, diverse sort of nature to people. And so I think you can throw an event and they're much more heavily populated areas, and you will get people that attend to it. So I think it's probably easier to do in the US than it is in the UK, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it in the UK. I think the problem I see most often is, we're in a proposal at the moment with a brand that I know do a lot of events, and I can't find any sort of personalized experiences or flow setups and stuff when we're looking in towards it in the account that say that there's a clear pathway for people that have attended events, that then they get what happens after that event. And so I think there's a little bit of, if you build it, they will come. And it's not just enough to do an event. The fortune is in the follow-up. You and it works the same in our world as well. Like, you sort of see people that will come to an event, there's hundreds plus people there, but they'll come and they'll sit and then they'll wait. And if nobody sort of goes and approaches them or speaks to them, they will leave. And I dare say that their survey will say, I didn't really get anything from it. I think if you're going to do events, you need to really have a strategy that what happens, what's the UX from that sort of event, what happens afterwards. So is it that there's a sign up at the event and that sort of sends a personalized flow and sort of thanks you for being at that specific event and references that event and talks about then, and then they're in a segment that sort of then gives them an opportunity to attend the next time that event is happening again. And I think it's not enough to just do an event. You've got to be really strategic with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's sometimes because obviously events, they're difficult to organize, they're expensive, they take a lot of time to do. I think unfortunately, when a lot of people do events, they have it and they think that's in the picture, isn't it? And they've sort of run out of steam a little bit. But actually, when you're planning it, like you said, that follow-up piece, you need to be building that in. And that's where actually the most of your energy's got to go in. Because once they've been to that, like you say, what happens next? Which path are you leading them down to kind of what you want them to do? And I think, perhaps maybe we need to think a bit more strategically about it when we are trying to run events as any type of business. But Rich, look, thank you so much for being my co-host again today. Thoroughly enjoyed being with you, mate. So much appreciated. Hope you've had a good time.
Yeah, I wish I could say the same. It's been very nice. There's not been a lot of controversy, or we've not disagreed on anything. So it's not been a normal experience of an hour and 15 minutes with you. But no, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I didn't get irate today, so maybe it's because Bob's not here that I've been a bit calmer. Let's see, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he's the troublemaker, or maybe we've both been on the CVG drops with Pedro.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, look, Rich, thank you so much. And guys, thanks you for tuning in today. If you listen live, thank you very much. And thank you for your comments and contributing. If you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, do give us a like or a share. And we'll be here same time next week with the Ecom Collab Club Podcast. Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Ecom Collab Club Podcast. Make sure you like, subscribe, and join our community at ecomcollabclub.com/community.